Mendel principle are three principles. They're basically the concept of unit character, principle of dominance and recessiveness, and the law of segregations. These are the pinnacle. These are the Mendel's principle. The first Mendel principle is the concept of unit characters. It means that each organism has a pair of hereditary factors that called as genes. Every organism has a factor that control the genetic process that is called genes. All the characteristics of organisms are inherited and independent units. Basically, the characteristic present on organisms are hereditary by independent units that are not independent. These are the basically the genes. Genes of one characteristic are not influenced by the genes of any other characteristics. They are not influenced by other genes. They have independent character. They are independent units. So the gene is independent unit in the character that show their characteristics. So this is our concept of unit character, that is gene. Principle of dominance and recessiveness. So the law of dominance is basically the one factor in a pair may mask the expressions of the other factor. So in the law of dominance is that the one factor show their expressions and other is hide fact, that is the dominance and recessive trait. For example, one trait was stronger than the other. If one trait was stronger, that is mean that is a dominant trait. If the mass factor, if the other factor is not stronger and the mass factor, that is a recessive trait. These are the principle of dominance and recessiveness. Next, principle of dominance and recessiveness is an organism with at least one dominant allele for a particular form of trait will exhibit that form of the trait. If organism have one dominant allele for a particular form of trait, so it's mean that they have those characteristics because these are the dominant allele. If an organism if have a recessive allele for a particular form of trait, it means they have only when the dominant allele for a trait is not present. When the dominant, they exhibit that form only. An organism with a recessive allele for a particular form of trait will exhibit that form only when the dominant allele for the trait is not present. It means if the dominant allele are present, they show that characteristic. If they only presence of recessive allele, that means they show the recessive allele because there is not present of dominant allele. So in this case they show the recessive allele. Next, the law of segregation. The law of segregation is basically the is a postulate that the traits may be traced back to the sperm and egg cells from the parents. Sperm and egg cells from the parent contribute one hereditary factors. If we a law of segregation is basically the sperm and egg cells from the parents, they contribute in hereditary characters. And next, they state that the pair of genes is segregated or separated during the formation of sex cells. When the sex cell formations occur, these cells are segregated, means they are separated in this process, and their pairs of genes are separated, and these contributes are hereditary factors. These are basically the law of segregation. And the law of segregation, in the law of segregation during gamete formation, the alleles for each gene segregate from each other. Segregate means they are separated from each other so that each gamete carries only one allele for each gene. In the separations, every gamete contain one allele for each gene.